But, there are folks that are, kind of balancing those things. And any of those kind of things. I'm just talking about balancing those things because the Bible tells us to balance those things. So, let's start with a word of prayer tonight. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the evening, and we thank you for safe travels. We ask that you join us and lead this Bible study tonight. We need to be able to focus. We need you to be able to kind of work on our hearts and minds, and we all carry around a lot of stress and worry and strain. We all have been through a pretty hard week in terms of lots of stuff going on here at the church with sickness and illness and deaths in the family. And so we ask that you would help us tonight to be able to hear your word, and that it would make sense to us, and that it would grow your kingdom, that it would change our lives, Lord, because it's you. We just thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, so tonight we're talking about our body. The next one will be about our mind. The last one will be about our spirit, not because those are our priorities. It's just kind of how we say things and do things. And so for our body, sometimes we might say, I really don't care much about that because I know I'm going to get a heavenly body, when I go to heaven, that kind of stuff. I don't worry about the one I have down here. But in all actuality, it affects our attitude so much. It affects what we accomplish in this world, how that we do things, our state of mind, all of those things are there. So let's start just with the idea of physically what we're called to. And let's look at Romans 12:1. And this isn't just a class on like fitness or anything like that. It's actually a bunch of things about our body and how that we learn to control it. So Romans chapter 12, verse 1. Paul writing to the Romans, church in Rome. Losing the sword, girl. All right, here we go. And there's Bibles on the table, or you can get on, your phone and find it that way if you feel more comfortable that way. So 12:1 says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." And so that's Paul telling us living sacrifices, right? That he wants us to offer our bodies, that's the daily, what we should be doing. And so how do we offer our bodies? You know what I'm saying? So for me, you guys are thinking this is going to be about nutrition and it's going to be about working out, and it can be some of that, it can be. But those are great examples to show us how we have to train our bodies, right? So, do you train your body? Yes or no? No. Okay, so if you worked at a plant and you got up every morning to go to this job, you had to get ready and all that stuff, and you got up at 5 o'clock every morning to do that, to get on the road, to go to wherever, and you did it every day for like 20 years or 30 years. After you quit and you went into retirement, what happened at 5 o'clock every morning? Wake up. Automatically, just wake up. How many of you all at this point, if you have a job like that, wake up before your alarm goes off in the morning? It would get to where I would wake up like 2 minutes before I was supposed to get up every morning. My body would just kind of go, Now, I couldn't count on that. There would be days when I would miss that if I didn't set that alarm, so I didn't ever do that. But you all understand what I mean about training your body. For us, how many of you all, in terms of when you go on a diet, are disciplined enough to stay with it? Or, right, that could be my buddy is a huge keto guy, and so he has the amount that he's going to have every day of whatever this and that and the other. He weighs it out on a counter with a weight to know this, and counts out the calories, counts out the carbs, counts out all this stuff, and he's very disciplined about it. He's been doing it for years. For me, he goes, "You need to do this," and I did it for about 2 weeks, and I went, "Oh, this is a lot of work. This is really, I don't know." And then, of course, Jill and Celia were going, "Well, we're going to stop here and get some food. What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I can't eat anything there." And they're like, "We're still going." We're like, "Okay, I'll sit in the car," right? You know what I'm saying? Is that, do you have the discipline for those things? Can you discipline your body? We had to do that. You all remember the presidential fitness test that I talked about one time, right? Back in the 70s and 80s, they used to have that. You get a patch. It was part of your PE that you would do. And they still do it today. They just do it a little different. But there would be kids who, when they'd say, "You got to run 2 laps around this track in such and such time," there were kids who couldn't run 10 yards, right? There was that, right? You know what I mean? And And then by the end, there was the majority of the kids got to where they could walk and run. They may not run the whole way or jog the whole way. They might walk some of it, but they got to where they could do 2 laps in pretty much the time they were able to train themselves. And so Bethany's really looking forward to that, evidently. She can't wait till the kids get a chance to run 2 laps around, right? Okay, so for us, training our body is something that, you know, I have a son who's a personal trainer, and so he's trying to teach people how to get in that habit of every day doing this, you know, getting their bodies to where, you know, they can do these certain things. So for us, how about Olympians? When you look at people who are in the Olympics, right? Do you think that they just rolled out of bed as a kid and they could do the things that they can do? They're highly trained people. Have y'all ever seen that one guy that they had that commercial that he was in, and then they kind of did more, that he was in like the Rocky Mountains and he was a runner, and he had that chain that he wore on a vest, and he pulled a tire behind him, a tire that was laid flat, not on the wheel part, it was laid flat on the ground. He drug it behind him as he ran. And then, so for all of the people, they were like, we have to do something if we're runners, because who wins all the races that are long distance races in the world? People from the high places in Africa, right? Kenyans. You see somebody wins, they're always from Africa, and they're real high up in the mountains where the altitude is these next, you know, and man, they're because of where they are, it trains their bodies better than other people, right? Have you ever tried to hold your breath underwater?
Yeah.
If you do that and you practice that, you can get to, I mean, you hold your breath for like 1 second or 2 seconds underwater. You can train your body where you can hold your breath for 30 seconds. The average person can do that. And there are people, I think in one of the Tom Cruise movies, they said they had somebody that got to where they could hold their breath for 7 minutes underwater. I was like, 7 minutes? I mean, that sounds like, I'm like, that sounds like made up or whatever. But training our bodies to do those kinds of things, it is a process. It's something that we have to physically do. We're just not naturally. And have you ever seen, I love to watch kids who are in elementary school who are like professional cup stackers. Have you ever seen cup stacking? Where they take just cups and they stack them up into a pyramid kind of thing and then take them back down, and it's a race to do that. And you go, how did you get good at this? And it's just practicing it in your garage or your basement or your bonus room. But literally while you're watching them do it, they're going. And they stack them up, and they're just stacked there perfectly, and they go. And they take them down, they put them in the thing, and it's like seconds. They do it in seconds. And you're like, how did you get to where you can do this, right? When I was 5 years old, I started playing baseball. And I had a stepdad at that point who was helping me. And he went outside, and we just lived out in the country. And he took tape, and he put tape out on the barn in a square that would have been the strike zone. Just put it taped there. And he gave me tennis balls, not baseballs. He gave me tennis balls. And he said, okay, we're going to throw, and you have to get it into that square. And I want you to get where every single time you throw it, that you can throw it as hard as you can throw it and get it in that square. Well, that evolved into a pitchback, which was a springy something that you could throw a baseball into, and it would actually throw it sort of back to you, not really back to you, but you could throw it, and it was planted, you know, you kind of secured it in the ground, and you would throw it, and it also had a strike zone, which was much smaller. And I got to where I could do that. And so that trained my body about how to pitch, and I played the next 13, 14 years doing that and excelled at it because I trained my body to do that. You get faster, you get better, you get more accurate, those kind of things. And in fact, it's really odd to me because my middle son played baseball with a guy whose name is Strider. You guys may know Strider. Strider pitches for the Atlanta Braves right now, and has actually in the last 13 games struck out more people than Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Schmaltz, any of the guys that you would think are the greatest pitchers of all time for the Braves. He's only done it in a very short period of time, but he played with Caleb. And he was pretty good in high school, pretty good. Really, truthfully, he was pretty good. And he worked at it and worked at it and worked at it and got to the point now where he throws about 100 miles an hour in place for the Braves and is their top pitcher and was like 2 votes from Rookie of the Year last year or something like that. So, and he's about this tall. He has trained his body to be able to do those things. All right, so let's look at some verses. Let's go back to Daniel 1, And let's do the necessary, which some of y'all are going to disagree with, and I don't necessarily agree with it. Y'all know me, I'm a biscuits and gravy guy. So let's look at Daniel 1 together, because we are talking about the body and our bodies and caring for them, that we're stewards of them. All right, so let's look Daniel chapter 1, and then look at verse 3. And remember, Daniel's been carried into exile. He's in Babylon. He is one of the up-and-comers he was one that was identified as a bright person in the Israelites, and he was going to be a wise man, enchanter kind of thing, but he's in training. He's a kid. It says in verse 3, Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Right? So, if we skip down to verse 6, it says, Among those who were chosen were sons of Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You're getting names that are Jewish names versus names that are Babylonian. It says, look at verse 8. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. So let's stop there for a second, because my grandfather on one side lived to be 98, the other one lived to be 90. Both grandmothers lived to be 90 and 80 something. And if you look at what they ate every single day, it's not things that they tell us to eat these days, right? My grandfathers on both sides, and all of them, they ate fried eggs or scrambled eggs, and they had bacon or sausage. They had biscuits and gravy. That would be their breakfast. And then lunch, they had sandwiches with whatever. That's usually what they had. Soup in a thermos or something like that in addition. And then at night, they had some kind of meat with vegetables out of the garden, and went to bed, right? Kind of thing. And so when we look back and we sit there and go, okay, why was that the case? Why were they able to do that? The grandfather lived to be 98, worked on a farm. And he worked like a dog, right? Myrtle and Bob are, there's a lot of stuff to do on a farm. So from the time the sun came up till the sun went down, they worked. And that physical work offset the things that they were eating, right? That was part of what went on. And then the other part is, on my mom's side, I think they lived to be old because of the things. They were poor, and all they really had to eat was vegetables. They didn't eat a lot of bread. They ate a bunch of vegetables because those were things they could grow out back. They might have chicken occasionally if they could catch one out in the yard, right? I mean, that's basically what they did. So they ate the things. When you said, what are you eating? They said, well, here's where we keep our green beans that we've canned, and over here's the corn in the freezer, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And there's all these things, the pinto beans that we have, and they'd have cornbread with that, right? I mean, that's kind of what they had. But for a lot of it, they were eating a lot of vegetables. Lots of vegetables and salad kind of stuff, because that was what they had out of their garden, and that was, basically free, right? So how does that compare to where we are today? Because I'm going to tell you, I have 4 kids, and you guys know that, and I keep saying it that way. Jill had those children. I'm not taking any credit for that. She had them all. And she taxied them around when they were in their early stages. And my kids played every sport. They were involved in the band. They were involved in everything for us. They were involved in the Boy Scouts. They were involved in all this stuff. And Jill took them all those places. So when did she have time to go grocery shopping and go home and cook a meal and to get all that together?
She did.
James, they ate a bunch of chicken nuggets, right? That's right. They ate a bunch of chicken nuggets, right? They ate a bunch of pizza. They ate a bunch of Subway sandwiches. They ate a bunch of that kind of stuff. And if you know my 3 boys and you've seen them, what they look like at this point in their lives. They're all 3 pretty fit, right? All 3 guys are pretty fit. Part of that is from all that exercise that went along with it, hand in hand with it. But in terms of the world that we live in today, the diet 40 years ago, is it different than the diet that we have today?
Yeah.
Very much so, right? Very, very much so. A lot of, if you eat out at all, a lot of what you're getting is stuff that's high fat with a lot of salt in it. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not against eating out. I eat out quite a bit. So, but I understand that it's, if you think about what's good for your body, French food is not good for your body. Sorry. Exactly. Her phone was playing nice French music. So, the idea that he won't defile himself with what he calls rich food and wine, Let's keep reading here for just a second. So that was verse 8 that we read. Let's pick up in 9. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. So the idea is that we have a big long table full of everything to eat in the world, like a palace would have, right? You can imagine all the wonderful dishes that you can have. Have any of y'all ever been to a restaurant in New Orleans? Anybody here? Okay. If you go to New Orleans, they know how to eat. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's an experience. It's not, you don't just go there and go out in an hour. It's not that. It has courses. The French influence on it and the Creole influence come together, and they start you off with course 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, all the way to the end, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I ate all that, right? And but you've been there for a couple of hours or more by that time. That's what when he's talking about rich food, he's talking about stuff with lots of sauces. He's talking about stuff that's rich in fat and salt and all those, and lots of carbs, everything, right? So he said, the idea is this guy says you're going to look worse, right? And verse 11, so Daniel then said to the guard whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. All right, so again, remember we talked about, because I want to be honest with you, we're talking about practicality, right? Is that if I go to a Muslim nation, I walk into certain ones, the lady in the burqa, all that I see of the lady is this right here, right? Isn't that right? Yeah. And the reason for that, we've talked about it in Sunday school and in church and at this Bible study, is to prevent lust. The idea is that if I don't see this woman, then I'm not going to lust after her if this is all I can see. So the same would be true is we all kind of know this. This is a duh moment. Y'all can all go, duh, right? We all know that if we ate vegetables and drank water, that we would probably be healthier than we currently are right now, right? We can all kind of agree to that, you know what I'm saying? And yet, after about the third day of doing that, it's kind of like when you go on a diet and you're just sitting there with a carrot in one hand and a glass of water and everybody around you is eating whatever, and you're like, this was okay the first day. The second day, I choked it down. The third day, this is not going to work for me long term, right? I mean, we know that. We know the facts that if we eat that, and so what we do is the same thing that we do in terms of dangerous things. We manage risk, right? Like, if we sit here, you know that I'm the overprotective dad, and in terms of Seela, that I don't let her drive certain places, right? She did not drive herself to the Taylor Swift concert down at Nissan Stadium the other night. I did not let that happen. So I manage that risk. And so we choose certain things. We go, am I going to get on that elevator? Right? And we go, it's an elevator. Nothing ever happens on an elevator. But in reality, when you step in there and the door is closed, what happens? There's a metal cable up in there, and it pulls you up to wherever floor it is, right? And there's mechanical pulleys and all that stuff that's going on. It's all really high tech. And, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it takes you, you're trusting and having faith in that elevator that it's going to get you where you want to go. You're managing risk because there is a risk associated with it. I stood in the hotel lobby in Atlanta at a conference, and I'm standing there, and I'm from here to that window over there, and a glass elevator is going all the way up in this atrium, and it's about 30 stories high, and it's just beautiful, gorgeous hotel, this fancy conference going on. Everybody's in like really fancy outfits and dresses, and this elevator gets down to about the second floor, and it goes shaboom, and it just drops down and hits the floor. It's about 2.5 stories that it dropped with people in it, and you can see them just kind of go down in there because it was a glass elevator, and I'm sure they all got paid a bunch of money by that hotel or that elevator company or whatever it was in lawsuits. But you know that there are times when elevators don't hold up. So we do the same thing by if I drive Carter's Creek, my level of being in a car wreck is about here. If I drive on Nashville Highway, I think my level of being in a car wreck may be right here. If I get on I-65, my level of risk of a car wreck is about right here, right? You know what I'm saying? If I go into downtown Nashville, it might even be higher than that, where you've got multiple interstates all doing this, right downtown. So I'm managing risk. Same thing's true with this, is that if I go, man, I really would like to eat some of this, or some of this, or some of this, in addition to these healthy foods, we manage that by working out, don't we? That's kind of, we do it by some kind of physical exercise. That should be the plan, right? I'm not saying it is the plan. I'm saying that should be the plan, is that we match those things together. So, but in the Bible, it's sitting here saying the plan should be, if you really want to be healthy, this is the way you would do things. It's laying it out for us, and they are actually healthier people, after the 10 days that this goes on. All right, so let's get that out of the way first. All right, so now let's go to the pink handout that I have, and let's talk about some of the stuff that's in there, and we'll talk about food and some of that in just a second. But let's talk about learning to control our flesh. That's the body. The flesh is our body. So, is there a difference between your body and your mind?
Yeah, maybe.
Isn't there? I mean, can the body stay alive without the mind?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, your body does a lot of stuff by itself, does it not?
No.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you do. You have a nervous system that does things. It's called autonomic nervous system that does things without you really even knowing that it's going on, right? If I'm hot, I can't turn a fan on, but your body's doing stuff to regulate the heat. It's doing stuff to regulate the temperature if you're cold. Your body does things, and so. But let's take that first example right there about being lazy. Is that you have Jesus and his disciples, and he says those words: "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And so he's talking about them, and he says, "Will you pray for me?" And they go fall asleep on several occasions. Well, this was just before Jesus is arrested. And so for us, we have to be aware of that. If I go and I sit on the couch for extended long periods of time, what is my natural inclination later?
To go sit on the couch.
Go sit on the couch. I want you to see that actually the more lazy we get, the more it encourages us to be lazy. The more, you know what I'm saying? Our energy levels go down because, we're doing less and less and less. Again, I am not against rest. Please understand that. I am wholeheartedly think that God created 6 days. On the 7th day, did what? Rest. Not for a preacher, right? No. You know what I'm saying? Is that he does encourage us to rest. The idea, though, is that we have to train our bodies not to be lazy. Okay, so if Jill comes home and she says, "I am going to do everything I can to make Chris happy," she said, "I'm going to wash the cars. I'm going to mow the grass. I'm going to do all the laundry. I'm going to bathe all the kids. I'm going to do all the shopping. I'm going to do all the cooking. I'm going to do all that kind of stuff." How long will I let her do that?
One day.
As long as she wants. As long as she wants, right? Is that you'll notice my friend Bill came home and his wife had to work overtime. And so this whole week she had to do it overtime. He said, "You know what? I'm going to do the cooking and I'm going to start doing the laundry for this week to try to help her out." And so he did it, and it went really well. The kids were like, "Dad, you're a good cook, and our laundry didn't end up with spots on it. I mean, you did a good job. Thanks for doing that, Dad." And his wife goes, "Yes, so now you can do it some more." He's like, I was trying to be nice, but we will let people do for us as much as they will do, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me tell you this. 1970s, I can remember sitting at Thanksgiving and Christmas. No man ever got up from the living room where the football game was going on. Their wives went in and fixed whole plates of food for them and brought it back to them, and they sat there and ate it in front of the ball game. And then when they got done eating that plate, then their wife took that plate into the kitchen and got their dessert, brought their dessert out there to them, and they ate that dessert. And I was sitting there going, "This is a pretty good racket you guys have got here. I don't know how you all got this way, but this is pretty good racket." And then by the 1990s, what was going on? "I'm not about to go in there and get your food, you lazy behind. Get up and go," right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's what is that it just breeds more and more laziness. The more that we have done for us, the more that we're willing to let people do for us. And so, it's always funny to me because that's part of why we long to get promoted in businesses, right? We imagine, we have it in our heads, and Larry will tell you this, that when you're on the ground floor, you think that the people who are upstairs are sitting in the office of the CEO playing cards, right? That they're doing nothing. And the guys digging dishes are out there doing all the hard work, and so these guys are doing absolutely nothing. And what you tend to find out when you get promoted is, you're like, oh golly, I'm working twice as much as I was down there, because now I have to keep up with all these people, and when they call in sick, and whatever it might be, that somebody quits to take a better job, that I got to find more people and train those people, and I mean, it's just more and more work. But for us, we imagine in our head, oh yeah, when you get promoted, that's when you don't have to work anymore. It's just a different type of work, right? All right, so let's talk about the second one, which is hunger, right? Paul says, Philippians 3:18 and 19, for as I have often told you before and now, tell you again, even with tears, many live as enemies of the cross of Christ. Their destiny is destruction. Their God is their, what's that word? Stomach, right? And their glory is in their shame. Their mind is set on earthly things. Chris Caldwell, when he's sitting eating eggs and bacon in the morning, or cereal or donut or whatever he's eating, whatever I'm eating, I'm sitting there going, I think at lunch, I think I'll have this. I'm pretty sure, but I want to make sure that I stop and get one of those, because that's what I want to have for lunch today. And when I'm at lunch, I'm going, hey Jill, when you're on the way home, can you stop and get this? Because I want to have this for dinner. I mean, and so when it says your mind is on earthly things, sometimes, and there'll be people who go, Chris, you're just exaggerating and all that, right? Okay. We've used some of these examples before, but Knoxville has, at one time, had more restaurants per capita than anywhere in the South. So there were more restaurants all along through there. And I would be going down the road and I would go, I have a sandwich at my office that I'm going to eat. I've got, it's pimento cheese, I've got it there, and there's a bag of chips there, or there's an apple, there's whatever there, and I'm going to eat that. And I'll be 15 minutes from my office and I'm driving and I'll go, it's for free, I can just go right there, and I would drive down the road and I would go, that's Chinese food. Oh man, I haven't had Chinese food in a long time. And then keep going a little bit further and I go, oh, that's fajitas. I smell fajitas. Oh, that smells great. And then I keep driving a little bit more, and they're making wafers and whatever else, and they're charbroiling those things, and that smoke's coming out of there. I'm like, that smells good. And then by the time did I ever get to that pimento cheese sandwich? And the ultimate example, you guys know this. I share it and you guys go, Chris, you don't have to tell us this again, but I will literally turn and tell my family before we're walking into the movie theater, we are not buying any popcorn or Coke when we go in here. And they're like, what kind of poor preacher family are we that we don't get any popcorn when we go to the movies, right? And you're doing James is showing this right here. He's doing this number, because as soon as we walk in, and I pay for those tickets, I'm always up there, whether they're on your phone or whether you're having to, and I go, I gotta have some popcorn, and Jill goes, well, you don't have to buy the 55-gallon drum of popcorn over there. You don't have to buy that one. And I'll go, well, the small one is $8, and right, and then the medium is $10, and that other one's 6 times the size of that one for just $12 or whatever it is, right? And then by the time I order it all up, they go, that'll be $79.84, and I'll go, $79? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so that idea of hunger, when it hits you, it says their God is their stomach. Now, how do you know that? Well, this is the way I know that. So, in the 7 days coming up, every single day, I want you to say, I'm going to read my Bible and pray, and I'm going to do something good for Jesus. Just say that. Just say, tomorrow, Thursday, I'm going to start. For the next 7 days, next Wednesday, we'll all talk about what we did for Jesus in the last 7 days. And when we get there, in 7 days, there'll be some people who go, I forgot all about that we were doing that. I don't even remember anything like that. And I'll go, here's my question. How many meals did you eat between last Wednesday and today? And most people will go, 3 a day, 21. I had 21 meals. Because and snacks, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is that nobody, by the end of the day, tomorrow, you guys might say, oh, I didn't read my Bible and pray, but you'll go, I did have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right? Everybody here, right? And I know we'll all say, well, you can't get any work done unless you put the fuel in, right? So that's what we're doing. You get it. But that's how you figure out, where your priorities are, right? We all know, because if we say that our body is in, that we're training our body, are you going to sleep tonight? Connor's the only one. Connor's going, It's still up in the air, right? Sam's doing the same thing. Larry, between me and you, I will go to sleep tonight. I'm going to tell you right now, my body will, I actually can say I'm going to watch the rest of this movie and then I'll have to ask Jill tomorrow, okay, I didn't see the last hour of it, So, we do train our bodies. We do have this, they have this thing about, this hunger within us and what we do with it. All right, so the same thing also applies to sexual immorality. So let's look at that. Because we're still talking about flesh. We're still talking about the things that actually get in the way of our walk with Christ at times. And some of that's laziness, some of that's hunger, some of that's sexual immorality, which is a different kind of hunger. But it says, 1 Corinthians, or actually, let's look at, let's just go with what we got there on the page. So it says, 1 Corinthians 6:13, the body, however, is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. All right, and then the next one there, look at B, because this one will really turn you on your head, because this is out of the Bible, and yet you tell me that's not pornography. All right, look at the next one, from Habakkuk 2:15. That's 5 books from the end of the Old Testament, written by one of the prophets, and it says, woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin till they are drunk, so that he can gaze on their naked bodies. So, in the pornography industry, the estimate is between 80 and 90% of the people who are actors and actresses in the pornography industry are addicted to alcohol and drugs. So, we are physically paying, we're pouring drinks for them to get drunk so that they will act out sexual acts in front of us and we can watch it. The estimate is 90% of men watch pornography on a daily basis. 90% is that number on a daily basis. Now, that does qualify what your definition of pornography, right? That is because some of us have been raised in a culture where we go, our rated movie is not pornography, may or may not be, right? We don't know, you know what I'm saying? In terms of that. But it's pointing out the fact to us that that is a different kind of hunger. And let me ask you this question. So, if I watch pornography every single day as a man, how do I start to view women? Objects. Things to have sex with. Things. Not people. Things. Just, hey, that's just something that's going to make me feel good. You understand what I'm talking about? That actual, it washes over us and we stop seeing people as, oh, that's a sweet woman that lives over here and she works over here. That's a sweet woman that's somebody's daughter over here. That's, right? We stop seeing that kind of thing. And what that ends up doing to us over time is perverting us. And the reason I use that word is because everybody pretty much when they, are in like elementary school, they look over there and there's a cute redheaded girl over there with blue eyes and you're like, she's so cute, I wonder if she would go with me, I wonder if she'd be my girlfriend. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to write a note, how should I write it? Look, read this, does this seem stupid? You're over there, you're, do you like me? Check the box. Yes or no? I never got any of those notes back. But you know what I'm saying is that you give it to them, and because you long to have that relationship, you long to have love, right? All those kind of things. And somehow it goes from that, and you have boyfriends and girlfriend kind of thing, you go out on dates, and you go to dances, and whatever it might be. And then from that, we get to places where in the world today, you have children as young as 4 and 5 years old. I watch the news and there's people who are like sexually abusing infants and sexually abusing women in assisted living, 99-year-old ladies who are in comas. You know what I'm saying? And you go, how do we get to there? Because the flesh is weird, right? The flesh, we have that hunger that is there that we have to get in control of. All right, so look at the next one. Let's shift gears here a little bit and let's talk about what we're going to do with D is gaining strength. And this is Hebrews 12 and 13 says, therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees, make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. All right, so in 9th grade, I dislocated this knee, and so this knee cap slid that way, and my foot was right here. It was turned like a T right here. It was twisted like this, playing basketball. All right, so you think it was some kind of really, I wonder how much training they really had to have, James, at the surgical procedure and all that, because I went into the ER, and he looked at that, and he goes, boy, you don't see that every day. And I went, and I'm bawling, crying, and just weeping. And he goes, this is going to hurt. That's what he said. And he just spun it, right, and put it back in place. Then they put this huge thing on from here to there that was like a portable cast, but it had the straps, right? It was like a brace all the way down, and I had to wear that for 6 weeks. Now, if you dislocate your knee, they immediately have you on machines you're working it. You're actually physically walking. They don't put that on there anymore. So it was on there for 6 weeks, and it was June and July. When they took it off, this leg was normal size. This leg looked like a pencil, right? It was like this. And when I walked, I was kind of
Like a drunk.
yeah, like Fred Sanford, right? I was kind of doing, I know I'm showing my age, but it was kind of that, this leg was weak because the muscle had atrophied, is the fancy word, right? Is that it had lost its strength. And so if we go by number one there and we're lazy and we go sit for a long period of time, what do our muscles do?
They're weak.
They deteriorate, they atrophy, they go down. And so, it's always funny to me when people start working out, because I do this. I'll go, man, I've gotten overweight, I need to go work out. And I go work out hard for like 3 weeks, and I'll go, step on the scale, and I go, I gained 7 pounds. What happened here? Muscle weighs more than fat, right? Muscle weighs more than fat. So here we are, and so if we're sitting all the time, and that's one of the issues that we're talking about when I was mentioning Larry, is if I go from a job where I'm digging ditches to managing people who are digging ditches, and I sit in a chair all day managing those people who are digging ditches, right? Then what happens to my muscles over time? They atrophy. Right? I lose those muscles. And then we wonder when we get up to go to the refrigerator. That's just me, right? I get up off the couch to go to the refrigerator. Okay, I told y'all this story, right? That my friend Randy, he was sitting he had his arm around his wife, and she goes, "Where's my phone? I don't know what I'm doing with my phone." And he goes, "Yeah, you probably left it in the kitchen. We were in there earlier eating or whatever." And so he texts her on the phone, and he goes, "Ding," in the kitchen, and she goes, "You're right, it's in the kitchen." And so she gets up to go in there, and what he texted her was, "While you're up, will you bring me a sandwich?" That's what he texted her. So, yeah, she's like, "No!" That kind of thing. So, but if we get up, if we have sat for so long, if our job has made us lethargic, right? You see people now, what they're working on is standing desks. They're working on, they have bicycle pedals underneath the desk. They have treadmills underneath the desk that you can walk on, all that stuff, right? So if I let the muscles atrophy, and I know this doesn't seem like, okay, you're like, is this a Bible lesson or is this not a Bible lesson? The Bible is straightforward to tell us. It just said, make your knees strong, right? Get your muscles. Because when I get up off the couch to walk to the refrigerator, does it feel good or does it hurt? It hurts. You know why it hurts? Because fat's trying to hold up all of you, not muscle. Do you understand that? Yep. I want us to get that because, I have grandparents who were like thin as rails, but they would get up off the couch and it would sound like, you were breaking spaghetti, as when they walk. And they were like, I don't understand why I'm so sore. I haven't done anything. Well, that's it. It's that your muscles have atrophied to the point to where, I think it was my Sunday school class on Sunday. I said, there's times when I sneeze and I go, oh, I've hurt something. I've taken a rib out of place or hurt my back sneezing, because the muscles have atrophied over time. So gaining strength is one of those things. Okay, so the same thing would be gaining endurance. That's 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 27 through 27. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. I strike a blow to my body and I make it my slave. We have to figure this idea out that body, mind, and spirit are kind of all one thing, but they're kind of separate. And you know that because if we all went and we did, Planet Fitness, $1 down, $10 a month. My brother-in-law says that's the most expensive decision that he's ever made because per visit it's cost him $1,000 because he never goes. Right? He's paid $10 a month for 10 years, but he never went. And he's like, so really, if I go once, it's going to be $1,000 visit. That kind of thing. But if we go and we decide, hey, we're going to get really into this, and we go do it for 2 weeks in a row, what does it feel like? When you try to get out of bed, if you've not worked out in a long time and you go to do that, I don't know how any of those people survive off the Biggest Loser kind of shows. I don't know how they do that because they just kill them. It's just every day doing something. And if they're about 3 or 4 days, we just go, I'm not going back. I can't lift my arm to do my toothbrush. I'm trying to, right? Because we're so sore from working out. Our body is saying, no, we're not My mom worked a job in Las Vegas where she worked about 13 hours a day. She drove about 2.5 hours in her drive, in addition to the 13 hours every day to get, and all this. And when she retired, she's like, finally, I don't have to work and do anything I want to do. And so I'll call her and I'll say, what'd you do today? And it'd be like noon. And she goes, I'm worn out. And I go, well, what have you done? And she goes, we had to go to Walgreens this morning, and then we went to a doctor's visit, and then we had lunch at Panera. I'm going to bed. And I went, what? And she's like, yeah. She goes, I'm worn out. And that's part of getting older. That's part of the energy levels. That's part of all those things. But at the same time, we can build endurance. You sit there, and there's so many examples of people who, we would look at some people like Jack Barron and Martha Barron who were faithful in walking every day, right? Out walking, just walking. We're not talking about, because everybody tends to think, okay, I've got to go to Planet Fitness and I got to get completely in shape by doing this many weights and, doing all this stuff and running and all that. And in reality, a lot of times if we could just get out and walk, it keeps us limber and flexible and the things that we need, and it helps build endurance to be able to do just the normal things like going to the grocery store. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm at the age where when I walk into Walmart, before I ever walk up to the building, I go, is this the end I need to be on? Because I am not going all the way over to that end, you know what I'm saying? Because it's 7 miles over there if I forget where the oil is, and then to go over here and have to get toilet paper and whatever else I got to have, right? It's like this big, huge ordeal to walk all the way across that store. So, building endurance. Muscle memory. Muscle memory has to do with us learning to do things and being able to do them repeatedly over and over in our lives. And I want you to hear this story, because what you can train your body to do, Doug Cummings works at General Motors, and one of the things that he has to do is he does maintenance and repair on certain things. And he talks about that when they build a plant, they have to build a plant, and Mark would be an engineer who would be able to talk about these kind of things more than me, but he talks about that they build it from the ground up and that they build stuff on top of stuff because they just have to get it all in the same building to be able to do the process they need to. And they don't think about that if it breaks down, what do you have to do if it's down on the bottom level, right? Is that, we just built it, we just expect it always to work. And so you're sitting there, it's much like certain cars that